And we're now live. Hey everybody, this is Samrat Kishore. I welcome you all once again to the Baseline Show. This is a very special show. We are in the first office hours of 2023, and this is exciting for all of us. We just had before this Baseline Show, we actually had our first TSC meeting of 2023 as well. So yeah, we just hit the ground running, and yeah, for today we are hosting office hours because we also want to give everybody's updates of what what everybody is working on, what different TSC working groups are working on, and also hear from the community members what they're working on, and if they have any questions on baselining. So let's get started. I think welcome you all once again who are in the live studio. So I'll start with Keith. We have Andreas, we have Yoav, we have Mark Adel, Mark Rimza, Sonal, and Charles Todd. We also have Ignacio. He's joining, I think, after ages. So yeah, welcome back, Ignacio. We don't
Thank you
see you
very
on
much.
YouTube. We don't see you on YouTube, but I want to let everybody know that he's there. So for today, let's keep the agenda open. There's a new directive that we spoke about few weeks back when we were discussing the TSC and the various working streams that we will be taking up. So one new thing which came out was the blog. So maybe we could kick today's show off with talking about the various blog posts. The first one was that was very well received, and we also saw a lot of commentary about it. We saw feedback on that. The new one is getting minted as we talk, and we will see it in the third week of January. So yeah, look out for that one. Andreas, you want to add something on the blogs, please? Anyone? Andreas, you're on
Oh,
mute.
sorry. I was on mute. Hello, happy New Year, everyone. Glad to see everybody back, healthy and one piece. Hopefully rested and with the liver still intact. Yeah, so we have some exciting stuff coming up. Samrat mentioned the blogs. So every TSC member has committed to writing a blog this year. That doesn't mean that there shouldn't be more. So if you want to write a blog about baseline, do not hesitate. Feel free. Write it, submit it. And if the TSC wants to is like, yep, that's good, then we'll publish it. Absolutely. So this is a open call for blogs. Write about your favorite baseline story, and we'll get this going. Yes, the first blog was around the digital business trilemma with or digital business at a crossroads, where we discussed the very fact that there is actually, we live in a world of trilemmas, right? Which is seemingly so, right? We have the blockchain trilemma. We have the bridging trilemmas, plural. We have the well-known CAP theorem, right? So CAP, consistency, availability, and partition tolerance, right? From computer science, which underlies all of that, right? So this blog was about trade-offs, right? It posits that you need to make trade-off between decentralization, performance, and security, right? And the key here is that in contrast to for a digital business, right, and in contrast to, for example, a blockchain, there is simply no control on one dimension, which is decentralization. In fact, decentralization is exponentially increasing with regard to digital business endpoints, because every single endpoint can try to get in contact with any other endpoint, right? So whether honestly or maliciously. So so therefore you have no control over that portion, versus, you know, when you have a blockchain, right? People need to stake something, they need to do something in order to participate in that network, right? In the digital business network, you don't. You throw up a webcam, turn it on, point it at any other endpoints, and you're in business, so to speak, or not. But the barrier to entry to being active participant in the network is extremely low. That obviously has a significant issue with around, you know, performance and security, as we all know, right? It's like every single major institution right now is compromised. They just don't know it yet, right? Because it takes between 3 and 6 months even to figure out that you have been compromised. So so the idea here is to say, well, you know, if you need to, for businesses to do business digitally, they need to create subnets, right? The position is, if you want performance and security, you need to somehow constrain decentralization, which means you need to create subnets, and that's basically what Baseline is. Right, you're creating business subnetworks that are more constrained, that are not as decentralized, right? And they're heavily shielded. And so, you know, but there is still no a single point of failure. So that's the key insight, that by using blockchains, inheriting security properties, having the right level of decentralization / federation, you can still find the right trade-off for your use case using the baseline pattern. I think that's the bottom line that we try to make in that blog, right? So just a little fun fact: the cost of cyber security and breaches is going to reach over 10 trillion in the next 3 years, and that's like 20% of global GDP. So it's becoming significant, and the doubling rate of IoT devices that are connected it's doubling every 3 years, and we're sitting at a currently 15 billion of them. So have fun with that. So yeah, so that's the basic premise for baselining, because regulatory constraints are converging, right? So if you want to do business with a federal government, in fact, any system that touches a government system, eventually you will have to implement the zero trust framework, which is still not 100% well defined, but it's going towards the fact that every single business interaction must be assumed to be non-trusted, right? So you need to, so rather than saying, oh, you know, I know Samrat, we can do business together, it's like, no. It's like you need to go and say, Samrat, prove to me that you're Samrat. Well, I'm sitting right across from you. No, can't believe that. I can't trust my eyes, can't trust that right? Because I need to, whatever you're giving me, I have to pass to someone else who's going to ask me the same question. And if I can't prove to that individual that whatever you gave me came from was properly authenticated, authorized, and verified, right? So it's and correct, right? So it's, you not only need to be authenticated and authorized, and the information has been verified, it also has to be provably correct, right? So those are four key elements for a digital business transaction, right? And you have to do that for every single transaction. At the same time, you have GDPR and CCPA and everything coming in, and no one wants to share data, because they either get sued if they share, or they're fearing that they're it's going to get leaked and business secrets are being revealed. So the challenge is how you can do authentication, authorization, verification, provable, correct, and not share anything, right? So that's not, now you have really five requirements, 5 fingers, that you need to fulfill, that are standing in stark contrast. So that's again where we're saying, hey, this is where the baselining approach, the baseline pattern comes in. It's the only way to be able to resolve that conundrum. So not only the digital business trilemma, but also the tension between regulatory requirements.
Super. This is helpful, Andreas, and I think the very recent, the upcoming blog is also something on those lines. So we're going to be talking about multi-tier financing, actually, and invoice factoring. So I think that is something which is really cool. Most of the businesses that I know of use it, and still, if you read the reports from UN or various trade organizations, they always say that there is still a lack of proper financing for SMEs. So that is one area which needs a lot of work, both from financier side as well as tech provider side. So that inclusion of small businesses into that whole game is minuscule.
I think that's the important element. Samrat, you hit the nail on the head, and so did you, Andreas. This is a problem for everybody, right? 2/3 of every company shares data knowingly with external parties. And if more than 80% of their information that's being shared is confidential, they fall into 2 categories. Either they're violating the regulatory compliance and the importance of that information today, presently, and maybe they don't know that they're doing it, or the alternative is they're in a disadvantage from a competitive standpoint, because those that can collaborate more effectively will definitely outperform those who do not. And I think, Andreas, you did an amazing job putting this narrative together and articulating that it's a problem for everybody. It's not just a problem for banks. It's just not a problem for small companies or big, publicly traded organizations. Everybody has to worry about this.
Yeah, and cybersecurity risks are becoming uninsurable. So yeah. It becomes virtually, try to insure your system against cyber attacks. It becomes prohibitively expensive because of the escalating costs, right? At the same time, small businesses have absolutely zero capacity to match that. Zero, right? Yeah. It's like heck, they have it's like they can't even properly use doing their taxes in a computer system. I mean, let's face it, right? Most businesses The vast majority of businesses are relying on third parties to provide that level of sophistication and security. And when those large companies are breached, right, then everybody is in trouble, and they're getting breached more and more often.
Yeah,
right?
And to your point, that they are compromised. You just don't know it. Everybody's compromised. And every breach, I think on average, what is it, like $4 million for every data breach is the average cost, and it's only growing. Like it's a real problem on our hands that is resolvable, but it takes multiple people to get together and think a little differently as to how
I don't think it's resolvable. It can be minimized.
Yeah, that's probably a better term. Well put.
You will not be able to right. It's like I did work in that field of AI generated malware. And when was that? 2017, 2016, 2017. The estimate was at that point that every day, the emphasis is on every day, 70,000 new pieces of malware are generated.
Yeah,
that was 6 years ago. So you can imagine that we're probably sitting now at a few 100,000 pieces of new malware that are just being generated because they're you just get it on the dark web with customer support.
With customer
support and money back guarantee. No, seriously. It is one of the largest industries on this planet.
Yep.
So and no one is ready. No one is ready for it, and we're adding more and more attack vectors every single day, millions of them to the picture, and they are protected by username and password, where the password is typically still test123 or password 123. It is literally insane. Most of the protection is based on 1990s technologies, and we are working against organizations that are using sophisticated AI to generate new variants of viruses intentionally and just throwing it out into the open. So it becomes that's why it's like authentication authorization, what's the primary defense, is no longer sufficient. Right? Verifiability and provable correctness is because I must assume you're compromised. I must assume that, right? I cannot even if I trust you, I can't trust you because as we just said, it's like you're very likely compromised and you don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
So, quick show of hands. Who has an antivirus app on their phone? Okay. How many of you have an anti-malware app on your phone?
I thought the same one does it. I paid extra.
Who of you have are using a VPN on your phone?
Proton.
Okay, so it's like so you need a combination of antivirus, anti-malware, and a VPN.
Yeah.
Right, to have a mediocre level security, such that your phone does not become unintentionally an attack vector, and in a way that you don't even are aware of it. And even then,
Yeah.
right, it's like you know, known backdoors, zero-day vulnerabilities are not being exploited because people are waiting to use them at a grand scale. So
well, it's the apps that you download, it's the QR codes that you scan, it can be anything, the links that you hit. Like,
I'm glad you
right.
didn't ask who's using Android.
There's booby traps everywhere. You just can't get around them.
Right, phishing in our beloved Web3 world is rampant, and people just like click confirm, right? Because they don't understand what they're looking at, right? It's like you know, it's like how many people when they you know in AP, right, really understand what they're looking at. In the FP&A functions of they'll claim, oh, I understand. You understand whether that you know whether that invoice is actually legit, whether there is no collusion, whether this is the agreed upon price, whether there's not an issue. No, you don't.
I have no phone.
You have no phone.
I use each use I get a new air gapped phone and then connect it right away and use it, and then
everybody calls a burner.
It's a burner. It's a
carry a bag of burners.
It's an air gapped burner phone. You're actually connecting. You use actually two phones, right? It's like one that is your network provider phone, and then the actual phone that connects to it to actually use it, right?
Yeah, and they're all only iPhone 14 Pro Maxes burners.
This is like every day you have like stacks of a few hundred of them, right? And then
they're rechargeable. Did you know that? Yeah, they're rechargeable.
And they can be recharged, right? And you can do a factory you can do a factory reset, which, by the way, fun fact, is not going to get rid of malware if it's at the firmware level.
But Keith, that means you're trusting Apple, that the phone out of the box that you're getting is secure. You got to manufacture your own phones, man.
All right, I'll get on that. Thank you.
Come on, what are you doing with all your free time? Come on.
Burning phones. It takes a while.
No, but I mean, we're all joking here, but you know, in a you know, think about it, right? It's like if you're really zero trust, right? Whenever the CEO connects their phone to the network, right? What is being done beyond authentication and authorization to ensure that there's nothing bad going on? Right, they're relying again on third parties, on, you know, you have again, you know, I guarantee you most of them won't have, you know, antivirus, anti-malware. You know, they're probably using a VPN, you know, but they're two-factor authentication is probably because the CEO is not sophisticated enough. They're still doing it via SMS, right? So these are all things that are you know, really, really problematic, because they're easy, you know, everything is easily compromised, right? And you know, state actors are actively, and, you know, organized crime working for state actors or actively exploiting that. So, you know, the things that we're proposing to use, like decentralized identifiers, DIDs, or verifiable credentials, zero knowledge proofs, are all components and tools that need to be used together in order to establish that, right? And then, you know, ask how many organizations are regularly rotating all their keys, right? And how many are still using, you know, digital certificates from centralized identity providers that potentially, you know, email send master keys via unencrypted email. So again, the reliance on third parties to do your work is highly problematic, and they will charge, these companies, as they provide more and more capabilities, will charge higher and higher premiums for that work. So I think that is really your companies will be relinquishing more and more control to those third parties that don't necessarily have that company's best interest in mind. And if they choose to cut you off, what then?
I was just nodding in agreement, and also I think I've seen at some places in the past where, you know, there was this whole wave of digitization following banks and banks following digitization. So at that time there was tons of this data, such data, which was available at an absolutely unsuspected party, right? I mean, this is where competitors would go and fetch data from, and nobody would even know. So yeah, I think I'm glad the way, you know, this discussion is shaping up, and also there's the other, you know, there's the flip side where companies spend a lot of money in securing these interfaces, and end of the day they end up securing the interfaces, but still when the data goes out, it goes out, right? So where you feel that it is going out for legit reasons, but then don't have an expiration date on that. So I think what we should do is we should do a follow on this discussion as well. So if at all we could find anybody who can talk about zero trust, you know, who's probably out there in the market selling some products to people. It can be from OT space, it can be from cloud space as well. Because I've seen the use of OT of zero trust cybersecurity in the OT space as well. So
yeah,
I think we should all look for it.
Yeah, there's let me see. I can probably so one of the interesting things that is lacking in the zero trust space is because zero trust is just a word, or two words actually.
It's an overused two words.
It's an overused two words for sure. But there is no there are no existing standards around it. Well, I'll take that back. So the Metro Ethernet Forum just published a first zero trust standard for the telecom space. So the standards are starting to emerge, right? And you could put, you know, the baseline protocol standard into that category as well. Because of all of our requirements in section 3 of the standard. So it's something that we probably should see if we can bring it, if we can I could see if the primary author, I could bring in the primary authors from MEF to speak here about MEF 118 and what that means. So yeah, let me do that and see if we can get something going going here.
Awesome. We could also talk about our Interop Fest, something that we're planning sometime this year.
Yes, because you're right, because the yes, Interop Fest, great point. So why Interop Fest, right? So because the standard is only as good as its interoperability, right? The other thing is because what we just talked about, right? It's like there is not going to be one baseline implementation to rule them all, right? Which means you'll have multiple ones that need to have workflows across multiple counterparties that are operating their own baseline applications, as everybody operates their own applications right now, right? And baseline protocol implementation is still that's what it is. It is an application. It's not a network. It's right. So so we will need to do. We'll need to figure out how we can demonstrate interoperability in a way that is actually zero trust and compliant with the requirements of the standard. But doing that that's going to be key. Otherwise, we will not be able to. I think it's going to be key for traction, because companies don't like vendor lock-in, right? So being able to say, hey, yeah, we can do that. That's going to be really interesting, and we want to do that with a lot of with real world companies and real world systems of record. So which we're thinking about initial use case. Which one was that? Keith, do you remember what we discussed initially?
Can you say that again?
The use case for Interop, right? For the Interop Fest, which one was that? Because we had said it has to be a real world use case, and has to be also simple enough that we're not boiling the ocean too much.
Is this the currency exchange idea that Ryan presented?
Yes. Thank you. Joff, can you since you reminded us so nicely, can you talk a little bit about that?
I sure can try. I know Ryan published maybe a blip or a grant request in regards to it that will give a better, more detailed depiction. But I think the idea was that many companies, are dealing in different currencies that are being exchanged at rates that they want to keep private, so that they not disclose those, but don't really have a good way currently of being able to do that while still providing the real-time transactions necessary.
Yeah, I think that the key problem here is that your spot rate for USD yen is not necessarily my spot rate. Right, because it's like even if we say, hey, midnight on it's like every day midnight we take the spot rate, but spot rate where, right? Is it, you know, and which midnight, right? So is it, you know, is it the spot rate in Hong Kong or Tokyo or Shanghai or London? You know, it's like which spot rate, or you know, or Chicago, or which spot rate is it, right? From which exchange, and how do you reconcile differences, right? I think that's what I recall is the real issue. So if memory serves right, is basically we need to sort of like come to an agreement on spot rates across, not only within a BPI, but basically creating a price oracle, right? Have multiple BPIs collaborate to create a you know, federated, or you know, price oracle based on where that information comes from actually trusted companies, without necessarily revealing what they're actually using in a particular invoice, but allowing others to utilize those you know, verified price feeds, you know, or averages. You know, that's something I think that we need to figure out. What are we going to do? What are the types of prices we're going to offer as feeds from that ongoing you know, price oracle. So I think that's actually something that might generally be useful for you know, businesses globally. You know, it's like, you know, what, the more I think about it, it's like there is no real like accepted price oracle, exchange rate oracle, that is backed by like a bunch of companies saying, yeah, we're using these sources and these are our subscriptions, blah blah, we're paying for it, but we're agreeing, yes, we're all agreed that this is the right price at that point in time.
Sounds very exciting. So yeah, let's look forward to the fest coming up. And then and I saw Ignacio turned on the cam. So Ignacio, let's hear from you what you're up to these days. How's your baseline journey going?
I'm catching up. For me, it's a lot of a learning process. I think it's amazing the opportunity, the landscape of opportunity, and the team behind Baseline. I think there's a lot in terms of education for especially the enterprise into this world. You know, they will start them trying to get into the cloud, and now you know, they're facing all these cybersecurity problems, huge problems, right? And all the regulatory privacy and confidentiality demands, and at the same time, the interoperability and interconnectivity of multiple parties. I think we're spot on. We are in the right area. I think you know, as earlier, Andreas, you were pointing out, for instance, an exchange rate oracle. It makes full sense. I think you know, coming from financial services is a common problem. That's why exists arbitrage between the Hong Kong market and the New York market or the London market, right? Because they open on different time zones, and there are just people trying to save a few basis points out of selling stock in New York and buying it in Hong Kong, right? And it's actually the same stock, right? And that arbitrage should not exist in the very first place in a properly intelligent market. And it's all those inefficiencies, which in volumes are huge. It makes a lot of relevance, especially for many companies that they don't access to those markets. They can be big corporations, but they have big trade finance problems. They have cargoes that they need to bring from, let's say, Argentina to China or to India or Singapore, and all that spot rates fixing makes a huge difference to them, right? In hours, it can swing a lot, the renminbi to the dollar. So, I think it's a lot about showing that this could really happen, right? So that besides the merits of our approach, we are realistically much more far beyond than other decentralized technology solutions, because I think our approach here from a multi-stakeholder perspective is really open field, right? So it's an open protocol that can be adopted from the own enterprise legacy systems, and that's the interesting part. Is our open mind and capabilities. So really looking forward to help and contribute as much as I can to this project. So heard about this blog, and I will try to bring my own little drop of rain into the lake. Thank you.
Thanks, Ignacio. And you do bring in a very unique skill set to the group. So yeah, welcome. And thank you for making the contributions you have, and you will continue making, I hope. Okay, so do we have any other ideas for items to discuss today?
Yeah, we have
we
also have the BRI, or the roadshow that we want to where we want to highlight baseline protocol implementations that have been created or that are already out in the field. And in order to educate a wider audience, not only a wider audience but an audience of executives. And I think that will be really important. I think being able to showcase something like that, a real world use case that is immediately usable by a lot of companies, rather than having to work with their partners a lot or others in order to get everybody on the same page, I think that is going to be really important to showcase. Here's something that you can immediately use, and two, here are other use cases that you can implement, even within your own company, right? If you look at global companies, and they have issues around their systems of record, even within a company. So it's like how are you evaluating when you need to do the 10K and the 10Q again? What are your currency conversion rates that you're using at what point in time to value your assets? It's like how are you are you keeping different GLs in sync, between different legal entities in the same company, right? I mean, or my favorite one is when sales sell something that is actually not an inventory, right? Because it has been, because that inventory has already been committed by another sales guy, right? It's like and not like at the same minute, no, like days ago.
Okay, I was just gonna say that pilot transaction, but okay,
right?
days ago.
So it's like days ago, or even I remember in the telecom world, right? It's like you're promising capacity that you might not have available at that at all, because
that happens all the time,
right? Because the capacity planning is not not because of outages, is because you're over committing. You're over committing capacity to your customers, because you don't have a common view on the actual inventory, because systems that people are looking at are not in sync.
you're talking on mute.
The Andreas, I think you're covering the right theme. However, I think systems have become a lot better in inventory availability, whether you're drop shipping something or not, where I think the real opportunity for exploration and value realization is post award, right? Are we living up to our service levels and commitments that make sense and that govern this business partnership? Those are the ones that are absolutely impossible to manage. And there's always information asymmetry, right? Like, you're not answering the phone within 4 hours when I need support and resolving my tickets, as what my data might show, but your data shows otherwise, right? So that's usually where a lot of friction comes into business relationships due to information asymmetry. I think we should definitely explore a blog article on this realm, and happy to take point in coordinating that. But like, I think it's the post-award, post-effect compliance that is difficult for two parties to be on the same page.
Yeah. So
baseline is the reconciliation killer,
Yeah. So there is actually there's actually in the telco space, there's actually there's actually a standard around trouble ticketing, and there's the Metro Ethernet Forum actually has an ongoing initiative. They have a showcase where companies show how they're, for example, dealing with SLA assurance, right? So how do you resolve and surface any differences between what you brought up, except that in this case we're talking about digital supply chains that are being orchestrated in real time, right? Where you're saying the circuit was available, no, it was not. Wait, what? So it's like, or it was down and it came back up at that point. No, it actually came back up earlier, right? So that sort of like also just accounting, SLA accounting for like credits and penalties is very important. But for digital supply chains, you actually have an inventory problem. Because
telco specifically with Lex, right? Like, how do I get in touch with the local operator to know what we need to do and what could possibly be done to put in an OC12, right? Like, if I'm somebody like T-Mobile that's selling that, but I'm not the local provider. I have to integrate my solutions through a feedback loop to solution that and price it before I can pass that back to my customer that says, here's what it'll cost to put an OC12 in this manufacturing center or this distribution hub.
Yeah, and you're buying that, the local provider is buying that wholesale, that service wholesale from someone like AT&T or Verizon or Deutsche Telekom, right?
Mhm.
Right, they're not actually providing it themselves, because they're really basically just the last mile.
Yep.
Right, so is that actually available? Has this all not already been pre-committed by to something else, not at the time of availability, but is just the capacity already maxed out, right? I mean, that's because you don't have a good sense of settlement of commitments, right? That's the problem between what's available in inventory and what is not. Where it actually becomes the interesting problem is, would there actually slowness be of an advantage? Because you don't have that synchronicity of data, right? It's like, would it actually there be to have a consensus? Oh yeah, I make this commitment conditionally upon the fact that we actually have this available. I can't enter the commitment right now, right? But the salespeople are selling this right now because they're getting commission on closed sales.
Yeah.
They don't really care whether what happens afterwards. Right. So is there, for example, value demonstrating that having eventual consistency, right, between all the points of sales, and an ordering, right, a correct ordering of the commitments, of the sales commitments, where you then just say, I will not be able to tell you whether we can provide that service or not, whether we have the capacity for another, I don't know, 3 hours, 4 hours, 20 minutes, whatever it is that you need in order to ensure that inventory is available against the commitment. Yeah. Right. So that's something that would be an interesting an interesting demonstration to show that you can actually going a little slower is actually going to save you a lot of money. But we would have to have
necessarily slower. I don't know if that's really the value driver. I think it's the visibility into a multi-dimensional contingency that makes sense, in aggregating that information for quicker decision making due to bringing disparate information sources and dimensions together. Like that's hard to do.
Well, it's again, at the beginning, I talked about the CAP theorem, right? So this is a classic case of that, right? It's like, what are we valuing here more, right? Is it consistency, availability, or partition tolerance, right? And because here it's critical. If you sell something, if you sell a circuit capacity at a particular point, right, and that commitment is final upon execution, right? If you if the data you're basing this final commitment off is incorrect, right? Because you don't have strong consistency, but only eventual consistency in your data partitions, because your system landscape is disparate. Then it becomes really then in order to avoid that, right? Because you're making commitments that become legal commitments that get you into trouble, right?
Mhm.
Because then they go to another provider when you actually said, no, this is done. They're expecting it, and then you come back, it's like, actually I lied, right? So so I think there's actual value demonstrating that you actually need to reach consensus on what is available at a given point in time, just like a blockchain does.
Yeah.
Right? Just like a blockchain does. There's consensus. Yep, we actually agree upon the fact that at this point in time, this is the available inventory for these digital services, right? Whether it's a T1 or T2 or T3 with these SLA commitments, right? Based on what your product product book is, right? So in different geos, obviously. So again, it's worth thinking about whether that might be actually something interesting to demonstrate.
I think it would be. Let's dig into that.
Yeah, I can ping, it's like MEF is so Metro Ethernet Forum is actually there is interest around precisely this problem of inventory management for digital, what they call data on demand services. So let me see if there might be an opportunity to collaborate there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's an interesting one as well, because from a financial perspective, inventory is key. And when you add the complexity of, as you said, what's inventory, what is not in inventory, what has been pledged as collateral, what has not been pledged as collateral, then you add another demand to prove, the state of record of that inventory, right? And I think you have even another stakeholder, which is the financer and the insurer, besides buyer and seller, even the different companies that you can imagine in a group, willing to be, without transferring the data, being aligned on that inventory state.
That's correct. So I have, what I'm taking like two things away here. One is the Zero Trust MEF 118 to get a speaker here, and then see if there's interest around using a BPI to do like data on demand inventory synchronization.
That would be amazing. Yeah. And let's get a speaker on Zero Trust as well.
Yeah. So
if they can
let me
demystify the most overused two words. But this is very interesting. We spoke about the blogs initiative. We spoke about the Interop Fest, and we spoke about the roadshow. Awesome. I think, and some real good use cases we discussed. I think every time some great use cases emerge when we have these pre-meeting chats. I was once working for a client which had a whole floor full of people just doing consolidation of their balance sheet. They have about 180 companies, 180 entities across the world, multiple time zones, multiple currencies. It was about 400 people were just doing reconciliations and consolidation of the balance sheet. So yeah, we should make this into a system as soon as we can.
Well, I don't know about making it into a system. I think it's proving the use case is
Oh
where
yeah,
we're at.
absolutely.
Let's
Awesome. So I think today's show has been phenomenal. Any closing thoughts, any parting thoughts, guys, before we bring this to end? Our first show of 2023.
I think we're good.
Okay, I guess not. So yeah, with that, we come to the end of today's baseline show. Thank you all for making it once again, and for those who are watching us live and in future as well. Stay safe, and yeah, we'll see you next week. We have an interesting speaker lineup for the whole of January. So watch out for the updates very, very soon. Thank you.